Hey, what's up, guys? Tukey here, back again with another episode of my Seattle Mariners franchise mode series right here on MLB The Show 19. And today we hope to finish up another season with the Mariners. Of course, we are here June 1st, following the draft, which was okay. Of course, I made the brutal mistake of taking Randall Denny on accident, but that's what happens sometimes when you record videos when you're tired. But we're 5 games back of Oakland, 4 games out of the wild card spot, and of course, after looking over the team, there are some there's some questions that we have. You know, maybe JD Martinez goes. What's the future of Pete Alonso and Alfaro on this squad? On this club and within the squad, and obviously as well. The bullpen, there are some serious issues with mainly Altavia, Hunter, and Crockett, although Altavia, the FIP rating's good, so some of these guys are going to be getting some extra time to try and figure it out. Tommy Hunter and Kyle Crockett will not be getting that luxury. We are going to look to deal them immediately, and we'll move on with our season from there. We'll see how things go once we approach the All-Star break and then closer to the trade deadline. Now, if I can only get one player back, I'm going to want at least a B potential guy. If I can get that, which it's not looking too likely, at least a younger B potential guy. Perdomo is terrible, but you know what? We'll try it. We'll send these 2 out to Arizona. That works for me. Let's go over to free agency and see what we can do here. Do I want to bring in David Phelps? You know, I don't really think it could hurt to bring in... Okay, Ottavino could hurt. All right, Chris Rusin, I'm honestly not sure. He's at least well-rounded still. He's not great. And obviously, Phelps... Now, let's bring in David Phelps. See if I can get him on a 1-year deal. I'm not liking him too much. And we'll bring in Rusin, whatever the hell, Rootin' Tootin'. We'll bring him in as well. Or not, we have a full roster. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's relievers. So let's go ahead and get this set up. Of course, we will replace from within, and it's going to be Pedro Rodriguez who gets a call up back to the majors. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's either Muller, Gerber, who's kind of at that make or break period, or Guevara. And you know what? Let's go with Joey Gerber. Like I said, make or break period for him. So AAA we have 4, 5, and it'll be 6 with Phelps. And AA is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with Perkinson. So we won't have any depth options there. And then shortstop-wise, as if we didn't have enough people, as it is. But we'll leave that for now. So again, the injured list, unfortunate. Jared Kelenic still going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, which is pretty brutal. But obviously, it's given us a chance to run Ubiyashi within this team, which is fine. So we are going to run with those. Let's go with those 4, and we'll take it from there. Like I said, I think with the rest of the team, it's more of a wait-and-see kind of approach, as Corey Seager's been dealt to Minnesota for Trevor Williams, Albert Almora Jr., and Vander Samuel Franco. That is a major, major deal for Seager. And Ray Mitra suffers a minor injury as we are continuing to lose games. We get our asses handed to us by the Angels. Barrios gets roughed up a little bit, and overall a decent, not really that decent stretch there, not really inspiring. We're down to 36 and 34, although a destruction of the Texas Rangers is quite helpful as we'll continue to sim our way towards the All-Star break. Kelenic is back to 100% after taking 2 out of 3 against Boston in the first 2 of a 4-game series against the Mariners. Not against the Mariners, against the Blue Jays. Against the Blue Jays. A little bit weird. I see Toronto, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, we were the Blue Jays last year. Not anymore. So Ubiyashi is on a bit of a hot streak here, and Kelenic was not doing well. Here's the deal, though. Kelenic will get back into the lineup. If he is struggling still once we reach the All-Star break, that might open up some space for some questions here. We have a couple of series before the All-Star break as we win 3 out of 4 against Toronto. We have 2 games quickly against the Cubs. We win both of those. And 4 games against Oakland, and they win 3 out of 4. Disaster for us, considering we're still chasing them. And we are, yeah, I mean, we're 5.5 back. So, I mean, we're, still 5 games back of Oakland. 3 games against Chicago. That's very nice. And then 3 more games against Texas. Can we get the series win? We can. Now, we do have a participant in the home run derby, which is promising. It's J.D. Martinez, shockingly. So maybe that's a good sign that he's turned things around, as we will sim the All-Star game. A 14-3 victory. And let's see, first and foremost, who made it. So Jose Berrios does make the All-Star game. I mean, dominant numbers. Cy Young, if the season ends today, no doubt about it. That is ungodly. 14-2, 141 Ks, a 2.14 ERA, and a .93 WHIP. He has been everything that we could have hoped he would have been. Syndergaard, Sale, Teheran, and Shelby Miller make it as well. Austin Bryce. And not surprising to see no representatives for us from the bullpen. Catcher-wise, very disappointing, obviously. First base, Matt Olson and Rowdy Tellez. Second, Rengifo, Luis, and Drew Jackson makes it. A distinct lack of Mariners. A distinct lack of Mariners, which is obviously, I mean, JD actually ended up making it. That's, I mean, again, the big controversy over he or Gallo. We stick with JD. He starts off slow, but he did end up making the All-Star game, as does Malik Smith. Of course, the controversy, or not the controversy, but the debate as to whether or not we should have kept him as well. So we do end up with a couple of All-Stars. We're 3 games back of Oakland, and currently tied for the wild card. We have a game at hand, or the Angels have a game at hand on us. So we're very much in the playoff mix. And I can't help but think, again, it'll just be a matter of waiting until we, oh God, man, our starter numbers are dropping big time. Sorry to Flaherty, but Berrios is going to be the starter. Let's just say we go with that there. Again, I can't help but think someone like German Marquez is, he's likely to be dealt. He's kind of on the fringe. Like, he's not bad, but you'd kind of expect better, especially with what he was doing. Lachesi as well. You'd hope for a little bit better. So, I mean, we do have quite a few starters on the cold streak. Chad Kuhl, the 30-year-old. Again, it's not awful, but it's not great. Scott Oberg, how have you been doing? Of course, you were roughed up earlier. It's just kind of the story. Joey Gerber's been brutal from the looks of it. Okay, it's not the whole story. Oh, Pedro. Pedro, please. Jesus, when are you finally going to be ready? Like, when are you finally going to be ready? Good Lord. That is absolutely brutal. And then has Altavilla turned it around? The ERA has dropped. Okay, so Altavilla at least turned it around. That was a safe bet to keep him. Carl Edwards Jr., the ERA is high. He's not looking too good either, unfortunately. There's still room for some concern here. I think it'll probably be similar for the lineup, so we're going to hold off. We're going to sim to the deadline and take one more look, because the goal this season is obviously to make the playoffs, as Miguel Sano is dealt to Detroit for Luis Robert, Richie Page, and Brenner. So very interesting to see the Twins add Corey Seager, but then trade Sano. Doesn't make too much sense to me, but sure, do what you're going to do. So we take 3 games over Cleveland. We're now 15 games over 500. 2 games against Texas. We lose them both. 4 games against the White Sox. We split those 4, and now 3 games against the Angels, where Chris Paddock goes down with a torn groin for a month or 2. And we're going to lose that series to the Angels. This just, I don't have a good feeling about this season by any stretch. It doesn't feel like it's gonna go our way, does it? At least it doesn't to me. As far as who gets the call up, I mean, Cairo's done really well in AAA, so we're gonna add him to the 40, and we'll look to bump him up. And Cool will make his way into the rotation, Cairo, as the long reliever. We have a couple more days here as we end up at least avoiding the sweep. And then a few, or more than a few, 4 games against Houston. And we won all 4. That brings us to the deadline. We are currently tied atop the AL West with 62 wins and 46 losses. The Angels and the Astros, for that matter, could join in on the fun. And then there's Texas. As far as the wild card is concerned, I mean, it's a slugfest right now. It is an absolute slugfest between the 4 teams in the AL West. And I don't know how it's going to go down, but if we want to make the playoffs, we got to make sure we're in the right spot. So lineup-wise again, or rotation-wise, Jose Barrios is set, no doubt about it. Jack Flaherty on a bit of a cold streak. He's not going anywhere, though. The plan was for him to be the ace. He's been fine. Chad Kuhl, I mean, he's dropped the ERA lately. The FIP rating there is a little bit concerning, but he's normally our long reliever, and I'm going to say he's good enough to maintain. Joey Lucchesi's on a bit of a hot streak lately. The ERA is not awful, but it's not great. The FIP rating, leads me to believe that's just a little bit of bad luck. And then German Marquez, who was a big pickup last year, had a great year last year. The ERA is rough, but the FIP rating's okay. So maybe we stick with him as the 5th option because he's not a bad 5th option to have. And I mean, I could try to shore things up a little bit via trade, but I'm not sure. It might not be necessary. And Cairo hasn't even been used. And, of course, if you look at Chris Paddock, and we will, 3.83 ERA, and a FIP rating of, So I'm worried about Marquez, and I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit worried about Paddock, which sucks, because I really liked when we were able to pick up Paddock, and for what we got him for. So 2 pitchers in the starting rotation, ideally, that I'm a little bit concerned about. Is that at least one too many? That's the question. As far as the bullpen is concerned, Oberg. A little bit worried about him as well, man. Joey Gerber. A little bit worried. It's just a bit meh for Gerber. Pedro, have you calmed things down a little bit? Not really, so Pedro just still isn't ready. We can send him down again. Altavia, how's Dan looking? He's continued to sort things out. Carl, the ERA's dropped a little bit. Carl will stay, and Brandon Brennan will stay as well. So, Oberg's on the fringe. Gerber is a little bit on the fringe, but safe. And then Pedro still isn't ready. So, arguably, we could change one starter and one reliever if we wanted to bring in that little bit of insurance. And then, I mean, someone like either Chet Watson, maybe Enrique Hernandez, who's, I mean, terrible. But, I mean, ideally there would be changes made here. So I think the main question would be, in terms of, let's look at NL leaders, and we'll go by ERA as far as who's available. And again, Patrick Corbin is going to be expensive as hell. Joe Musgrove, who has ended up in Colorado this year, is going to be expensive as hell by the end of it. But for now, isn't too bad. He wouldn't be here long term, but Musgrove's not a bad option. Max Fried hasn't been bad either. What's the contract looking like? And one arbitration year after this. And then Jamison Tyon, who ended up going to the Mets, has been great, and obviously gets paid a boatload of money. So we could look in Atlanta for Fried for the fact that there is that one arbitration year left. So Atlanta, what do you think? Say we give up Marquez. We get Fried back. Really shore things up. I mean, just have an ungodly rotation. It's the last year of Marquez's deal anyway. He's going to be looking for big money, or we're going to be letting go of him. So we might as well make this move. And then we also, I don't want to trade Pedro. But I think, again, you add... I'm a little bit worried about Oberg. But we do need to add a reliever anyway, because I'm going to be sending down Pedro. And I don't think I have any, I don't think I have the confidence in who we have there as it is. And of course, Kikuchi ended up being a monster, but again, I didn't think we'd be ready this early. So out of their relievers, AJ Minter has been in AAA. How was he doing when he was called up previously? A little bit hit or miss, we'll say. Winkler is on an expiring deal. And he might be the guy, man. I think we add Winkler. And then what about Shane Carl as well? It's a little bit more hit or miss for him. Coda Glover. Not a chance of that. And Jesse Biddle. Not a chance. Let's just go for Winkler. And as far as what that's going to take, we know we have an abundance of shortstops. Although Perdomo is nowhere near good enough, but we can still add him to the deal. It's going to take a lot to get this done. And Robert Poisson is not quite the guy that I want to use to get it done. Vientos doesn't really add enough. Pete Alonso, yeah, I'm sure you're interested in that deal. We haven't even, of course, checked the lineup to see what's going on with the players that we have. Fried might be a little bit too expensive, but we will have some starters. Fukumori is a monster. Kirkpatrick. Still not enough. Huh. I wonder if they adjusted like AI trade values in that most recent patch. That would be pretty nice. Not as easy to just absolutely destroy the AI on trades. I wouldn't hate it. But, oh God, do we have anybody here? Santana, Moran. I don't know if I'm going to have anybody that's going to have the right amount of value to pull this off. Fried might be a little bit too expensive. But, at the very least, Dan Winkler is somebody worth targeting. So, maybe we just go for this. We use Kirkpatrick to get Winkler. And, value-wise, I guess I wouldn't even really have to use Kirkpatrick. Can I use the shortstop, Perdomo? He's not enough. Nor is Marte with him. You know what? God damn it, this is tough. As far as who to use here. Let's say we use Perdomo. I wish any of these other guys were half decent in terms of trade value. Carmen Rodriguez. How's Carmen looking? I think I'm okay with that. Do you have a random outfielder that I can just add to the deal here? He's obviously going to be too much. Just a random outfielder to make sure we're still good in terms of numbers. I'll take back Izzy Wilson. Perfect. So we'll basically use Carmen Rodriguez to get Dan Winkler instead. And I think unless Marquez is going to stay, unless there's someone who we should clearly use in terms of the lineup, which is what we're going to look at. Malik Smith is obviously going nowhere. He has been great this year. His best season with us since we began this series. So yeah, he's safe. Kalinic, he's just not there. We can send him down if need be. So he's not looking good. His replacement in Seiji Ubayashi has been significantly better. I still don't know if we want to rely on Ubayashi in the playoffs, but Kalinic just isn't getting it done. It's just not there from him. Eloy Jimenez, it's still not there. And again, we talked about it. I think we hold on to him for now. But if that number doesn't turn around, then he's gone next year before we have to give him a big money deal. It's pretty straightforward. JD Martinez ended up making the All-Star game. He's going to stay for now. We'll be able to deal him. He is in decline. But if we're going to go for the playoffs, we're going to need someone like JD Martinez's bat. So he'll probably be dealt after this year anyway. Pete Alonso. That's the argument right now, right? Like, we're in the mix. Do I buy? Do I bring in another outfielder to offset, Kalinic and Ubayashi? It's like, or do I just sell? It's like, do I just send down Kelenic, have Ubiashi be the guy, and call up a Daryl Carpenter to just sit there on the bench? Is it really worth the risk buying when we don't know Jimenez's future? The overall's fine, but if the numbers aren't there, he's not worth it. He's not. And the same thing with Pete Alonso. It just hasn't been there. And we were discussing that earlier, and now we've simmed over a month, 2 months in fact, and the numbers are still looking rough. Alfaro has at least turned his numbers around a little bit, but they're still pretty bad. Austin Riley has thankfully been better this year. Jonathan India hasn't been able to match what he did last year, but still, it's okay. And then Ray Mitra has been, again, just okay. It hasn't been bad, but hasn't been great. So it's tough because I don't want to add to this team, because I genuinely don't believe that we're just a piece away. So I know we added a reliever, but that was to flip a shortstop prospect that we didn't even really need, and an outfielder. I think, again, we're just going to be leaving this team the same. We're not just one piece away. We need to see if these guys are good enough, and if they're not, then especially too if we miss the playoffs, that's probably a warning sign enough. But, it's going to be really around this time next year that we, make the decision on a lot of these guys, if not sooner. So the one guy that I am going to make the decision on is Kelenic. He's just not getting it done. I'm not going to call him ready. So whether or not it is Brennan Davis, who wasn't exactly killing it, I'm a little bit less afraid to have Brennan Davis just sitting on the bench, which is kind of what we'd be looking at. It's just calling him up and he would be on the bench. I'm not too worried about stunting his development because we have Dominguez right behind him. So he's going up to the majors, and Kelenic is going to get dropped for the rest of this year. And then as far as the pitching staff is concerned, again, Pedro is getting dropped down to AAA because he's still not ready either. So the rotation is pretty straightforward. Same thing, again, with Carl and Brandon Brennan leading the way. And, of course, we're still dealing with injuries, but we're going to keep the rotation as it is. Again, with Marquez, could deal him now, but we'll see if he can turn it around. I think this team it would be too much of a negative to really add to this team right now when we're not sure of the future. I don't want to give up assets if it's just going to be trading away people to recoup similar assets later on. It's just not worth the risk. Shout out to Roman Kessler, though, for just absolutely killing it. So the team moving forward, of course, we're still going to have Smith hitting leadoff just for his speed alone. And then, Ubiashi, 326 on base. Who else would we prefer to have hitting in that spot? 365, 342, and a 324. So let's say we have Jonathan India there. Eloy, 775 OPS, JD at an 839, 709, a 764. Again, just a 775 on that front. Austin Riley at an 836. So, Austin Riley is going to be in the 3 spot with JD behind him. And then Ray Mitra was at a 754. Ubiashi a 789. Alonso at a 709. Alfaro a 764. Cannot believe what I'm seeing from a lot of these guys. It's insane. That is pretty much the order moving forward here as we make the push for the playoffs. Whether or not it is good enough, time will tell. But I certainly didn't imagine Austin Riley in that 3 spot. And then again, it'll be Ubiashi, Alfaro, Mitra, and Alonso. Absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and get Jonathan India up there. Again, Riley, Bam, Ubiashi, Alfaro, Mitra, and Alonso. Pete Alonso hitting dead last. You don't love to see it. You hate to see it, in fact, because that is a nightmare scenario. Absolutely. So there we go. That's going to be the lineup. Again, just on this occasion, there are moves I could make, but with these slightly younger guys, it's going to be, all right, prove it. Now's your time. Either get the job done or you're not going to be in Seattle that much longer. So let's see what happens. We make the one change, really, or the two changes to the bullpen, of course, bringing in Winkler and sending down Pedro yet again. And now we'll see what this team is capable of, as Chris Paddock's still going to be out for a month or two. So Chad, cool, no pressure, buddy. As we ended up beating Pittsburgh, but then we lose to Chicago and Cincinnati. 3 games against Cleveland, and that's a nightmare as well. So 3 straight series we've lost. We have 2 quick games against Arizona. We win both of them. And then a crucial 4-game series against the Angels, where Carl Edwards gets roughed up a little bit, and we split those games. 3 games against a just over 500 Tampa team, as Sean Doolittle is dealt to Pittsburgh, and we lose that series as well. 2 games against, again, 30 games under Arizona, and we split that. And 4 games against a very bad Minnesota team, which is shocking given the moves that they made. But 4 games against Minnesota here to end the month of August, and we win 3 out of 4. So 75 and 59 entering the final full month of the regular season. We are a game and a half back of the Angels, and currently just half a game up in the wild card over Oakland. We have that game at hand. So we'll see what happens here. We play Oakland soon, not before, though, 3 games against Tampa, who we ultimately sweep, which is huge. The AAA team makes the playoffs, the AA team makes the playoffs, and we have this 3-game series against Oakland. Potential separation in terms of the standings at stake, and we lose 2 out of 3. We are still atop the AL West by a half a game. We have that game at hand over the Angels. And we have 2 games at hand over Houston, but Oakland's managed to battle back. And again, it's just an absolute slugfest between the teams in the AL West. Every game counts here. 3 games against a decent Kansas City team. That is a sweep, and that could not have come at a better time. As we take on the Angels, we need big performances here, and we get it. Beautiful. 7 straight wins now, sweeping Kansas City and sweeping the Angels. We're up to 86 and 61, now 4 games clear of Oakland in second, which is just a beautiful sight to see. That is tremendous. Can we keep it up, though? The Angels falling very far back, but Oakland and Houston still very much on our heels, and 3 games against Houston, a 2 out of 3 split could put them too far back, and we do win game 1 as the AA ball club end up losing, and Chris Paddock is back. The AAA ball club moves on to the title, and we do end up losing 2 out of 3 to Houston, so they're now just 3.5 games back, and of course with Paddock, he ends up making it back in, so I'm fine with that. Of course, the September call-ups factoring in here. Let's see what happens. 3 games against the Twins. It's a 2 out of 3 victory as the AAA ball club fall in the national title game. That brings us to 3 games against Houston. They're 4 games back. The Angels are 5 back. Oakland are 6 back. We've yet to secure a playoff spot, but it's looking ever so likely. And we're just a few wins away from clinching. What can we do against Houston? We lose the series. We're up to 90 wins. Have we clinched a playoff spot? No, we have not. So Houston, they're 3 back. The Angels are 4 back. Oakland, 6 back. No real guarantees here on how this is going to go down. We have 6 games left this season. We can pretty much stomp out Oakland right here and right now over the course of these 3 games. And we lose 2 out of 3. And in fairness, it was 2 games and 4 against Texas. 91 wins. Where are we? We're in the playoffs. That's where we are. Thank God. We will be back in the postseason. It's just a matter of whether or not we can beat Texas to secure our spot atop the division. The Angels are also in. It wasn't looking like they were going to be at one point, as you have the Astros there, 2 games above the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland Athletics, or should I say the soon-to-be Expos. Let's see what happens here. 2 wins will seal it. There's 1. It'll come down to the final day of the season as to whether or not we can clinch the top spot in this division. We need to beat Texas here, and we do. Thank God the Mariners have won their division. 93-69 on the season. We will take on Cleveland in the ALDS. No wild card for us this time out. Houston and LA will have to square off. The winner will move on to play the New York Yankees. So we are in the ALDS for the very first time. Of course, losing in the wild card game last year to Boston. Whether or not it's a good thing that we made it, I genuinely don't know. I really don't. We were up there, 3rd best team batting average. In terms of runs, we scored the 4th most. In terms of hits, we had the 3rd most. A lot of doubles this year. One of 2 teams to break 300. Tied for 5th in home runs. Stolen base percentage, we were 5th. In terms of walks, not top 10, but just on the outside. Strikeouts, 13th, kind of rough, but up there for slugging percentage as well. And if we take a look, the fielding rating, we were 3rd. Team ERA, 10th. So, the pitching staff kind of let us down a little bit. And if we take a look here, as Jared Kelenic ended up fracturing a foot once we sent him down. We did have league leaders, though. Jose Barrios absolutely killed it. I fully expect him to win the Cy Young here. And we'll find out for sure. So Jose Ramirez wins the MVP, as does Rhys Hoskins. Cy Young does go to Jose Barrios, which is tremendous. 2nd time in 3 years now that we've had a winner. He was unstoppable this season. Jameson Taillon wins it in his first season in New York. Batting title to Xander Bogaerts and Rhys Hoskins. The reliever of the year, Hassel Iglesias and Archie Bradley. Rookie of the Year, Jazz Chisholm and Mackenzie Gore. Hank Aaron Award to Mike Trout. And again, just a great year for Rhys Hoskins. In terms of Gold Gloves or a Silver Slugger, Ubayashi did win a Gold Glove for the 2nd time now in 3 years. JD Martinez wins a Silver Slugger. And that is going to do it. No, Jimenez also takes 1 home. So let's take a look here. Barrios will very much be our ace heading into the playoffs. 22-5 record, the 2.92 ERA. He was tremendous. Flaherty at 15-8 and a 3.78 ERA. Of course, Chad Kuhl, we need to make sure is not in, although you could argue whether or not he should be with that 4.04. Lucchesi at a 4.41 and Paddock was at a 3.36. So just to quickly compare Flaherty and Paddock. Flaherty with the 3.76 FIP. Paddock was at a 4. Oh, yeah. So, Flaherty will certainly be ahead of Paddock, and I'm a little bit concerned about Paddock. Joey Lucchesi, the 4.41 ERA, but a 3.7 FIP. Chad Kuhl with the 4.34. So, I think despite his struggles this year, it will be German Marquez in the rotation. Chad Kuhl will be the long reliever. And that'll be the setup. So, I trust Barrios and I trust Flaherty, but Paddock, Lucchesi, and Marquez all have something to prove in the playoffs. Of course, it is a best of 5, so I don't think we'll be seeing Marquez and probably won't see Lucchesi either. But, the top 3 in particular, there's a lot of pressure on them. And in terms of the bullpen, Scott Oberg, 94 innings of work. The ERA is pretty nice. A little bit concerned, though. A little bit concerned. Not seeing a ton of reasons to be confident. Joey Gerber was solid. I give him credit. Of course, we had given him a chance previously. But yeah, the extra time down in AAA did well for him. He's developed. He's done much better. Dan Winkler. Of course, we acquired him from Atlanta, and overall his season numbers end up being phenomenal. Dan Altavia, who we gave a chance to, a little bit of time to turn things around. And ultimately, he ended up being great this season. Carl Edwards Jr., the big free agent pickup. ERA is fine. Phipp is fine, and Brandon Brennan as well, who we brought back not all that long ago. We're looking good. I mean, the guy who I have the least amount of confidence in is Scott Oberg, and again, he wasn't terrible. He just wasn't phenomenal. So it's a situation I did not imagine. I'm more concerned about the starting rotation than the bullpen, and I couldn't have envisioned this situation at the start of the year, but fairly confident in what we have going there. Lineup-wise is where it gets interesting. So Alex Smith, 69 RBIs is hilarious, but a 306 average, the 863 on base, very happy with that. OPS, the near 400 on base percentage. Very happy with Alex Smith this season. Jonathan India, 24 home runs, 75 RBIs. The on base, the OPS, meh. I'm just going to go with meh. It's not bad. It's not bad by any stretch, but I don't even know if I'd define it as good, and it's certainly not great. And last season, it started to, he started to hint towards, maybe. Again, he's not bad, but it's not amazing. It's a little bit concerning. Austin Riley ended up in the 3 spot, of course. And again, it's not bad, but it's not great. And for a 90 overall, 94 through morale, it needs to be great, and it's not. So I have my concerns, of course. JD Martinez, who we brought in as a ringer this year, his production dropped. Although the 822 OPS, I'm not really complaining. He did fine. Whether or not he was the right choice over Gallo, probably not. Again, one of the two had to go. I would have been fine with keeping both, but Alex Smith actually ended up signing, which I didn't think he was going to do. Ultimately glad he did, but I'm all right with what JD did this year. Eloy Jimenez at least started to turn it around, and he has that going for him. 33 home runs, 107 RBIs, and that OPS at an 833. That is much, much better, and we cannot see his numbers regress again because, again, he has 1 year left under his contract. After that, big, big money. We need that number to continue to go up over next season and through the playoffs. He needs to prove that he's worth that money because otherwise I'm not going to give it to him. But that's promising. Sheiji Ubiashi, never would have thought he was back in the lineup, but here he is. And all things considered, it's pretty damn good. 795 OPS, a 329 on base, and a gold glove to his credit. So, very good stuff there from Ubiashi. Jorge Alfaro had a rough season, especially compared to last year, but was able to turn it around towards the end, which is promising. Now, whether or not he's worth the big money this offseason, I think it solely depends on what he does in the playoffs. It really does. He needs to deliver in this series, and if he doesn't, we may have to let him walk. And that's the thing, a lot of these guys are playing for their contracts and for their future on this team. Ray Mitra, his first real full season with the team. Very good stuff. Not complaining at all. And then Pete Alonso in the 9 spot. It's just, again, it's not horrific, but it's horrific for what he should be capable of. It really is. So, in terms of the lineup, and again, shout out to Roman Kessler. Good God. But in terms of the lineup, it's tough to say. Mitra at a 333 in terms of an average or an on base, and a 729. I'm trying to see here. Ubayashi at a 329 on base, and then Jonathan India at a 333. So I think we'll probably leave Jonathan India in the 2 spot. That was the main thing I wanted to decide on. Austin Riley's going to be moved back. It'll be Jimenez and Martinez. And then from there, Riley at a 789. We'll probably have it be Alfaro, Riley, Ubayashi, and Mitra. And then Pete Alonso bringing up the rear. That's still not a bad lineup at all. I'm not complaining. But obviously, we have some concerns. But the team did win the division. It's so tough because I think I'm expecting it to go poorly, essentially. I can see the warning signs there. We have the underperforming players. It's tough to look at this for what it is and say, hey, man, the team made the playoffs. It's good. We're turning it around. We struggled for the first 3 years, make it to the wild card last year, win the division this year. But it's just whether or not that growth, that upward trajectory, is it almost a mirage in a way? Or is it sustainable? We're going to find out in the playoffs. And again, you look at the ridiculous changes to this rotation, completely reworking it, adjusting to the fact that there were certain free agents available, adjusting to the fact that this team started to turn the corner a little bit sooner, and what that rotation is on paper. The bullpen's looking great, and you look at the names here, the development of guys like India and Ray Mitra, and what this team is already. It's a little bit surprising. I was thinking it might take a little bit more than 5 years, maybe just 5 years to make the playoffs. Now it's 5 years, we're winning a division title. But this team has a lot to prove against Cleveland, and we'll see what happens in the next one. But for now, I do want to see what happens as far as who wins the wild card, and the answer is Houston. So there you go. We'll be taking on Cleveland. Houston takes on New York. In the NL, the Dodgers won the wild card game over the Phillies and also took game 1 against the Mets. San Diego up 1-0 on Chicago. We are back in the playoffs. All the pressure in the world on our star players to get it done. If you don't here and you start to struggle heading into next year, and even before that, Jorge Alfaro, you don't deliver here, are you going to be a Mariner next year? It's a lot to be decided here in the next few episodes.